This is WCRN Weekend with your host, Pat Rice.
Welcome to another episode of WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830. Today we are going to talk with Diana Clark, who is an addiction and family expert from Turnbridge, which is a drug addiction treatment center located within New Haven, Connecticut. Diana has been all over the map to various cities and towns discussing about the unseen effects of addiction on families and the importance of getting help. As we all know, New England and Massachusetts has been hit hard severely by the opiate epidemic in the past years. The battle against opiates still continue to this day, including heroin, which is on the rise. Hi, Diana. Thank you for coming on to our show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great today.
How is it spreading the message around about the unseen effects of addiction on families?
So we are spreading the message by participating in as many parent support groups as there are out there, talking to parents one-on-one about getting support and beating the drum for family recovery. Learn to Cope just did which is an organization that supports family members of those struggling with addiction, and they just did a full-day conference in Worcester all about addictive behavior and neuroscience, and just getting the word out there is wonderful.
Absolutely. And it's a great thing that you do to get the word out as well, because a lot of people out there need help, and some just don't know where to start. Some don't want to start yet. And when you visited to Worcester, would you say that Worcester has been hit hard by the opiate epidemic?
Well, if you just look at what the state statistics reveal, Worcester has been hit incredibly hard. Essex County and Worcester County seem to be just devastated by this epidemic.
Yeah, and it's horrible. It's kind of crazy to think, how did this get so out of control so fast? For those that may not know, could you tell us a little bit about your journey into addiction and family treatment?
So in the 90s, I got a master's in counseling, and then shortly thereafter, my goddaughter became a crystal methamphetamine user and ultimately an intravenous methamphetamine user. And so I rode the roller coaster with her for several years, and her mom, who was my dearest friend. And, from one treatment to the next kind of treatment, from intervention to other intervention to, relapse to back to health. And so I learned so much that I wanted to be able to use it. And so I became an interventionist initially, and then developed workshops for families and wrote a book and released an audio book for parents, because what I realized so quickly was that even if the family member is lucky enough to have somebody in treatment, there is a whole lot that's going to change when they come out. Family members need to be armored, and they need to be receptive to the message and the changes.
Exactly. And I'm sorry to hear that. That's horrible.
Yeah, she's doing really well right now, knocking on wood. She's doing really well. Yeah.
That's good to hear, because I know that crystal meth is a horrible drug. I don't know which one's worse, heroin or crystal meth, but it is, when people get involved with that, it can turn your life upside down so fast that it can be hard to make a comeback from it. So that's always devastating, but it's great to hear that she's doing well. So you eventually get involved with Turnbridge. What type of curriculums do you guys have to offer, or that have you created within the addiction and family treatment programs?
So I am really excited about what Turnbridge is doing for families. They have a once-a-month educational seminar for family members of our residents that I facilitate. They have 8 parent support groups scattered throughout New Jersey and Connecticut and Pennsylvania, for those parents either in the Turnbridge, system or not within the Turnbridge system. Those are open to any community members who have kiddos who are struggling with addiction or loved ones. And we facilitate those groups. And then there's family therapy that the residents and their families engage in to make sure that the family system is in line with the recovery. And then we do a family retreat once a month or once every other month, depending on the month. And we do, sort of deep healing among parents.
How would the deep healing process go?
So we have several different workshops. One of them is a little bit of psychological understanding. We discuss triangulation and what healthy boundaries would look like. Then we talk about the sense of grieving and loss that all parents are going through if they have a kid who struggles with addiction. Turnbridge is a young adult program, so the folks who come to our family education component are by and large parents.
Okay.
And siblings. They also have a sibling support group that they offer, because those are the really unseen victims of addiction, the siblings.
I can only imagine go through so much.
Mm-hmm.
From whether their older brother or sister, or it could be younger brother or sister, they might be stealing from them, neglecting them, not talking to them, and the person that's going through the addiction becomes a complete stranger to the family, which is always sad. That's nothing that a family wants to go through. And
heartbreaking, yeah.
And now I know you guys have a 3-phase program entitled the Preparative Care. Could you tell us what that's about?
Wow, I love talking about Turnbridge. So phase 1 is all about neurochemical stabilization, getting somebody comfortable enough within the environment at Turnbridge. They get one-on-one care with a case manager and clinician, and they are integrated in the Turnbridge system. And once they are integrated, then they go to phase 2, where they start taking what they have learned in phase 1 and bringing it a little bit out on the road. They go to a meeting with independent transportation. They might get their cell phones back. There's a little bit of giving them enough privileges so that we can see, while they're still in treatment, how they're going to respond to those level of freedoms. And phase 3 is, having completed successfully phase 1 and phase 2, they get jobs and they start integrating even more what they've learned in phase 1 and phase 2 and live it in phase 3 with similar clinical supports but less oversight, more responsibility, more privileges.
That's terrific. It sounds like when you get involved with a type of program like that, you're going to get help, but you're not being treated like a prisoner. You're not going to lock people who are going through addiction away and be like, you don't have any contact to the outside world, you need to sober up. So this seems like a great way to also, sort of respect the individual as well and really help them get over their addiction. We have to take a quick break, but once we get back, we will continue talking with Diana Clark about the experience at Turnbridge, how much addiction treatment programs cost at Turnbridge, and life after addiction. You've been listening to WCRN Weekends with Pat Rice on AM 830. We'll be right back.
You're listening to WCRN Weekend. Once again, here's your host, Pat Rice.
And we return. In our last segment, we introduced and began our discussion with Diana Clark, who is an addiction specialist over at Turnbridge in New Haven, Connecticut, about how she got involved and became an addiction family expert, some of the programs that Turnbridge has to offer, how addiction may start for some individuals, and so much more. In this segment, we are going to continue our discussion with Diana about what Turnbridge has to offer, how we can put an end to the opiate epidemic, Trump wanted to make prescriptions cheaper, success stories from Turnbridge, and so much more. So what kind of environment and atmosphere is at Turnbridge?
So the homes are beautiful. David View, our founder and CEO, really puts high emphasis on that the environment makes a difference. If you have a lovely environment, you will feel like you are worth something. And that's the whole goal, is to restore a sense of self-worth.
Absolutely, because many people might lose their own self-worth after they've gone through the trials of addiction.
That's right. That's right.
How does addiction start for some individuals, and what are some of the telltale signs of someone that's going through addiction that might be hiding their problem to loved ones?
Okay. So how it starts, as many stories as I've heard, it starts, pretty uniquely. It's often, injury that they sustain in teen years that gives them access to pills that feel good. They might start by testing their parents' alcohol and liking it, or marijuana of a sibling, but they all encounter it, but something happens that doesn't happen for their friends. They start feeling a little bit more out of control with the desire to use. They don't want to use on Saturday nights only. They want to use Saturday, Sunday, Monday nights. They do it with a different sort of intensity, and then it starts to create problems in their life. Their school, their sports, their after school, their family relationships, their legal consequences, their financial consequences. There are all kinds of things that happen once addiction becomes the driving force in somebody's brain.
Definitely. And now, what do you see most for people who are going to Turnbridge? Is it mostly opiates, heroin, or is it maybe cocaine, amphetamines?
So I suppose, if you were to take one drug, the single largest would have to be the drugs that you and I would consider normal, like marijuana and alcohol, both of which are highly addictive and destructive to certain brains. And then we would get opiates, and then we would have cocaine and pills, a lot of Xanax, benzodiazepines.
So it kind of seems like it's a little bit of everything, really. From something, I don't want to say as simple as alcohol, but something as like
common.
Common, yes. And then it leads into a lot more of the harder stuff. With the opiate epidemic, how do you think that we can put an end to it?
Well, I think that it's going to be a several-pronged process. I think what we're doing now is sort of restricting the flow of opioids and opiates through prescriptions and through the ability for large drug traffickers of pill forms to be caught. Then I think we need to have the police, the local community agencies, and the local parent groups be on a joint task force so that they are on the same page that addiction is a disorder that the community needs to respond to in a loving way, not just imprison people. Let's get people treatment.
Definitely.
And then I also think we need to train people and destigmatize the disorder itself. And there are lots of great groups doing some good work on destigmatization of addiction.
Earlier, you mentioned about restricting the flow of prescriptions and opiates hitting the streets. I don't want to get politics too involved with this, but what do you think about the President Trump wanting to make prescriptions cheaper? Will this help or only hurt the opiate epidemic?
Wow, give me a second. I hadn't heard that, so I want to think. I see them as pretty separate issues, frankly. I think opiates from prescriptions are dirt cheap, as it is. They're dirt cheap. $1.57 for 30 Percocet.
Really? I did not know
with
that.
With insurance, yeah.
All right. It might be prescriptions in general then.
Yes. No, there are lots of prescriptions that aren't dirt cheap. Yeah. But opioids have been around for a really long time, and they're all generic, and they're all mass-produced, and they're cheap.
And so they can afford to sell them cheap compared to someone that might not be as big as a market as they are.
Exactly.
So after someone has conquered their addiction, what are some ways that a person can stay clean and invest their time in? Like, what are some success stories from Turnbridge?
Wow, we have a lot of success stories from Turnbridge. We have kids who come in at 19 who leave, who the program settle into the community, who go back to college. Those are ordinary stories now. We have kids who were once heroin addicts who are now in medical school. We have kids who found that school wasn't their thing while at Turnbridge and became tradespeople in automotive programming. We have educational consultants who work in our program who help people identify career and educational paths for themselves.
That's truly amazing. Going from just chasing after a high 24/7 to making something out of yourself in your life. How much does an addiction program cost if you were to go to Turnbridge?
So it really does depend. We work with a lot of different insurance providers, and the component, it would depend on how much insurance would cover. And I would hate to mislead or say on a radio something that would preclude somebody from even trying. Mm-hmm. Because we do a really good job of making Turnbridge work for as many families as possible.
What are your future plans for helping those and families in the struggle of addiction?
Yeah, that's a great question, Pat. I'm just going to keep going out there, speaking to as many groups as I can. I'm going to Cape Cod tomorrow to speak at the Cape Cod Cultural Center. There's a community meeting, and I'm going to be training clinicians about how to work with families and how to identify and ease family stress and keep beating the drum.
That's the only way you can. Just got to keep going at it. And, you're doing a wonderful thing. You're in a great direction. You're in the right direction. I know Cape Cod is another area that's been hit pretty hard by the heroin epidemic. And so how do you think that the practices of treating someone with addiction can get better?
Oh, I think we can treat them with so much more compassion, right? We can create an environment that makes it easier for people to access treatment. We can make an environment that makes it more affordable. We can create an environment that jobs are not lost as a result of going to treatment. There's a whole lot of ways we could do to treat this like the brain disorder it is.
Absolutely. And that makes me think of a lot of people. There's still that huge misconception floating around out there that drug addiction is a choice and it's not a disease, but it's really a disease.
That's right. And the brain is actually changed and hijacked.
Can the brain ever come back to how it originally was before a person got involved with their addiction?
So brains have an enormous capacity to heal, and that, yes, the cognitive functioning and the capacity to learn and all of those things can come back. In 99.999% of cases, people regain full cognitive functioning. That being said, they never go back to a point where they can drink or drug safely, ever.
Because they'll always have that deep down in their genes and their chemistry, that addiction, that want for it.
That's right. That's right.
That's crazy. I always thought that after someone abused drugs for so long that their body wouldn't really be able to come back from it. So
I've seen miracles come back. I mean, 70-year-old people who seem to have some dementia get clean and sober and regain, almost complete brain functioning.
Wow, that's amazing. That's some information we should also spread out more, because I feel like another misconception is, oh, that guy's fried from doing those drugs or drinking way too much. But if you just put an end to it and you quit one day, you can truly become normal again. And be
pretty much
another contributing citizen within society. So
absolutely.
If someone needs help, how can they get in contact and learn more about Turnbridge?
So I'm going to give out the website for Turnbridge and then my personal email.
Absolutely.
So it is www.T as in Tom, P as in Peter, addictiontreatment.com, and my email is D as in Diana, Clark, CLARK, at tpaddictiontreatment.com.
Terrific. Hey, once again, I'd like to thank you, Diana, for coming on to my show to speak about how to help families with addiction. Do you have any last words?
No, thank you very much for giving me a forum to spread this. I appreciate it.
You are very welcome. This is something that everyone in the community should know, and we are all about helping people. And just as a reminder out there that for people who might be going through some things or know people who are going through addiction, is that you can live a life, a fulfilling life, a happy, fulfilling life, sober and free from drugs.
Absolutely. People do it every single day and become better people for having gone through the experience.
Exactly. Hey, thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
This has been WCRN Weekend and your host, Pat Rice.